Hello, this lesson will involve a term combining review. In fact, we have an upcoming CFA and we want to prepare for that. Since we've been solving equations, we want to go back and review working with expressions. So when we're asked to combine like terms, our goal is to create an equivalent expression, not an equation. So it's not going to have an equal sign. An expression does not have an equal sign. So we're trying to create an equivalent expression that has fewer terms. We can relate this to reducing or simplifying fractions, where our goal is to try to create an equivalent fraction, just like equivalent expressions. So our equivalent fraction in which the numbers in the numerator and the denominator are smaller. So if you think about that, when we reduce a fraction, we're trying to make a fraction that has smaller numbers in the numerator and denominator. And our goal here is to have fewer of these terms. This has 4 terms. And these directions are straight ahead. They said simplify the expressions by combining like terms. So first of all, we have to recall what like terms are. Like terms have the same variable raised to the same power. So we're looking, if I start out with this first term, which is 4e, I'm looking for another term that has an e, and I see 3e. Now I want to make sure that I take the operation sign in front of it. The rest of the terms do not have an e, so I'm going to gather up 4e, and this plus 3e I'm going to read as a positive 3e. Next, I'm going to gather up the other terms that don't have an e. I see a negative or a minus 6f, and so I'm looking for another term that has an f, and this last term has an f, and you're noticing, hopefully, that I'm taking the sign in front of it. I'm going to look at this minus 6f as a negative 6f, and this minus 2f as a negative 2f. So now I have my like terms gathered up. So our goal is to combine these like terms so that I have fewer terms. When we combine, we're really adding, and I'm going to add what's called the coefficient. A coefficient is the number in front of the variable. So I'm adding them or combining them, and I have 7, and now I want to write down e. For f terms, I have a negative 6, and remember I'm combining, which means I'm adding, so I'm going to add a negative 2. I'm using the coefficients, the numbers in front. So I'm going to get a negative 8, and so I'm going to choose to write this the high school way, which means minus 8f, or if you prefer, you could write 7e plus a negative 8f. That means the same thing, and both of these would indeed work. However, this is more likely the kind of answer you would see if this was a multiple choice or in an answer key. They would probably not write the double signs like we have here. So now let's go on to number 2. If I circled that negative 3x, if I circled this, can you tell me what is a like term to negative 3x? If you said negative 5x, you are correct. So would you please gather those up on a line? Next, we're going to gather up another pair of like terms. Can you tell me what that next pair of like terms would be? Your answer should have been 8y and 2y. And the reason why I'm writing them as positive is because there's a plus sign in front of them. So now please tell me what happens when I combine negative 3x and negative 5x. The answer is negative 8x. And now looking at 8y and 2y, what would happen if I combined 8y and 2y? And that would become 10y. So we're going to write that 10y as plus, since it's positive, 10y. And so this is our final answer. Let's move on now to number 3. Number 3 has 5 terms altogether, so there's a few more terms. And you're going to notice that some of the terms have a variable, alphabet letter, and some of the terms do not. So again, like terms can be defined as terms that have the same variable raised to the same power. They can also be terms that have no variable at all. Those are considered like terms to each other. So let's start. I see initially that they've given me an A, and I like to write just a 1 in front of it. So I'm going to write that 1, and so now I have 1A, and I'm going to gather it up with positive 5A, and then negative 2A. So this time I have 3 like terms in the first group, and that's okay. We can have as many like terms as they give us, but what's important is they all have an A with them. So now let's take a look at the rest of the terms, the leftover terms. I see negative 9 and I see positive 4. These are referred to as constants. They do not have a variable, but even though they have different signs, they are like each other because they don't have a variable. So now we need to combine all of our terms that are like together. And we do that by taking the coefficient, the numbers in front of the variable, and adding them together. When we add 1 plus 5 plus negative 2, we get 4a. So I'm going to write this as 4a. And then we go on and combine the constants, the ones that don't have an a. So I'm going to combine negative 9 and positive 4, and I get negative 5. So I'm going to choose to write this the high school way, negative 4a minus 5. That's how they'd write it on an answer key. However, it also is the same as 4a plus negative 5. We could write it that way. So what I'd like you to do now is I want you to try number 4. Would you please name the first set of like terms? Would you gather up all of the n terms? The like n terms are 1n, negative 2n, and 6n. Would you gather up the constants? The constants are negative 3 and positive 8. Now, using your calculator, would you tell me the final answer? Final answer is 5n plus 5. So now let's move on to number 5 and number 6, which is our final expressions. All right, problem number 5. And by the way, I wanted to let you know that sometimes they don't tell us to simplify by combining like terms. They might ask us to write an equivalent expression, which means the same thing. We're just trying to gather up terms that are the and trying to create a smaller or a term or expression that has fewer terms. So we're going to start exactly the same way. I'm going to gather up 7a. Can you tell me what's like it? If you said positive 8a, you're correct. So we have 7a plus 8a. Those are like terms. So next, if I decided to gather up 5b, what is like 5b? If you said negative 6b, you're correct. So the good news is order doesn't matter, but what does matter is both of the terms on this line have a b in them, and both of the terms in this line have an a. So now let's finish. I'm going to be adding 7 and 8. They're both positive, and I'm going to get 15a, and I'm going to add 5 plus negative 6, and I'm going to get negative 1b. So I want to show you something. Sometimes in an answer key, they would not write it this way. They would write 15a, and see this 1? Well, I don't have to use that 1. I could just write minus b, because 1b and b are the same thing. So an answer key would probably just acknowledge the b. Instead of negative 1b, it would put negative b. So please move on to number 6. Would you please gather up a set of like terms for me, starting with 8x? If you gathered up 4x with the 8x, you are in great shape. Our next set of like terms, would you please identify what they are? If you said 2y and negative 3y, you're correct. Would you please write the final answer now the way that they would write it in an answer key or a textbook? All right, the way that they would write that is 12x minus y. If you wrote 12x minus 1y, that means the same thing. However, I just want to make you aware that this is the way that it would be written in an answer key. We usually don't include the 1, although it is correct. A lot of times, however, when we're gathering up like terms, we like to show the 1 because we need to add the coefficients, so we need the number 1 to be included. Thank you so much for watching this video. Take care and have a great day.